Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Is that working now? Perfect. Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Everyone, thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben. And sorry about that. We had a power outage here at the studio. And one very important button that is actually not the mute switch got turned off. It's funny how that works. But anyways, everyone, welcome into the program today. So today on the show, we have a full hour of computer and technology news. And of course, that's brought to you by Computer America. We have stories that are really, tech companies are having a really bad day, I guess you could say. There's a lot of legal happenstances. There's a lot of subpoenas and audits and antitrust lawsuits and just, wow, it's... I can't even say, be happy you're not Google because, man, anyone would want to be Google, but they're going to have their work cut out for them. So today on the program, we have that going on. Before we get to that, though, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, past shows, all the shows, articles, reviews, the podcast, social media links, anything that we do here with Computer America. Hey, you can be sure to find it first at computeramerica.com. Let's see. So there's that, everyone, and I hope that you're having a wonderful week. And obviously, things are starting to wind down here at the show. We are going to be going on our yearly break. This is going to be, get my calendar up here, December 24th will be the first day that we take off, Christmas Eve, and then we will be back all the way over at January 4th will be our first day back. And, that first week's going to be, of course, just kind of covering a lot of things. But then I think the week after that will be CES and a different kind of CES, of course, with everything being digital. We're going to, which honestly plays into our wheelhouse of live interviews because, hey, we can get these companies onto the show to talk about their latest gadgets. So, that's the plan. So don't be alarmed when, there's, best of Computer Americas for that following week. But hey, we'll be back as soon as possible. Don't worry about it. So with that being said, everyone, I think that's about it. Let's go ahead and get started with computer and technology news. So I think that our first, I think our first story is going to be, kind of a dark horse, something that I didn't really see coming, and it has to do with, Bitcoin of all things. Bitcoin, if you recall, they had this rocket ride up to about $19,800, and then just shy of $20,000, they came crashing back down. If you look at their price chart, it is something that is very apparent. Back in 2016 when it happened, people were making, millions of dollars a day on the rise, going from $1,000 or $2,000 all the way up to like $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. People thought they were good and they cashed out, and then it went up to $8,000, $9,000, $10,000, and they thought, wow, it can't go any higher. And then, days later, it hit like $19,000. It was incredible, and it really brought people into Bitcoin. People started asking, this weirdo at work was talking about how he made so much money with Bitcoin. I want to get into that. I'm interested in, Bitcoin. And of course, since then, it came crashing back down, left a lot of people holding the bag. Like a lot of people bought into Bitcoin during the hype. And then, of course, they have been sitting on their coins ever since. They were waiting for it to get back up there. surprisingly, without any fanfare, today Bitcoin prices passed $20,000. It's pretty incredible. Saying that, the world's Bitcoin is about 380 billion US dollars. That's what it is worth. So the price of one Bitcoin rose above 20,000 on Wednesday. The new all-time record caps a year of gains for the world's most valuable cryptocurrency. The value of all Bitcoin in circulation is now, as I said, about $380 billion. No single event seems to have pushed the Bitcoin over the $20,000 mark, but more and more companies, institutions, and wealthy individuals have started to see it as a worthwhile long-term investment, driving demand upward. There you go. They mentioned that a software company named MicroStrategy has poured hundreds of millions of dollars into Bitcoin in recent months, and it also recently announced it was raising another $400 million to buy Bitcoin. There you go. Square, who of course makes the payment platform and the payment method for cards, announced a $50 million Bitcoin investment in October. And that same month, PayPal announced support for Bitcoin, providing an on-ramp for retail investors. And Bitcoin always had this problem that it was kind of confusing to get into. You had to get a digital wallet, and there were services that kind of handled that for you. You could hold them, kind of making sure that they're secure and that no one steals them has also been a bit of a pain point. Theft and fraud within Bitcoin is just not within the standard itself, but within the way that people use Bitcoin. Theft happens a lot. So there's been a lot of problems, but it looks like they're starting to handle it. And I guess another problem that, used to be a problem, but it looks like less and less is becoming one. Whenever a company announced that they were going to accept Bitcoin for, for any kind of service or good or whatever, be it your Lamborghini that you're finally going to get with your Bitcoin or, whatever it is, these companies would accept your Bitcoin and take them at kind of the value that the exchanges would pay for them. So obviously, you sell them on Bitcoin exchanges for US dollars. And, if you had to buy something, the company would take your Bitcoin and sell the Bitcoin the exact same day. No company would be caught dead holding Bitcoin. And now it looks like, companies are starting to do exactly that because, they could see that, again, in Square's case, $50 million in Bitcoin in the bank is going to A, hold this value, and B, potentially increase in value faster than, interest in a bank account, a savings account, a corporate, trust, whatever. Bitcoin seems to be a steady enough option that companies are starting to take a real good look at this. So with that being said, boosters see Bitcoin as digital gold, obviously. They mentioned that Bitcoin reached its previous peak in around $19,500 in December 2017 before crashing to a low to about $3,000 a year later. And it's really incredible how many people were caught up in that. And I can't imagine all the people that, really sat there and said, hey, I have so much money into this, I might as well sell it for what I can get and just get out of Bitcoin for good. I'm sure that a lot of people, unfortunately, sold and lost a lot of money on Bitcoin. But now here we go. Now, they mentioned that while it's fairly easy for a merchant to accept Bitcoins, acquiring Bitcoin for routine transactions continues to be a hassle. Moreover, the capacity of the Bitcoin network failed to keep up with the rise in demand, leading to skyrocketing fees and long wait times at the tail end of the last Bitcoin boom in 2017. But as a result, many people see Bitcoin as primarily an investment asset, which, when Bitcoin was first described to me, it was supposed to be a currency of the future, You pay for things in Bitcoin, you instantly get change back, you can have fractions of Bitcoin. Bitcoin was going to replace the dollar. Bitcoin was going to do all these kinds of things. But now, obviously, people are seeing them as an asset, stocks, bonds, real estate, in that same vein as opposed to an actual currency, even though it's right there in the name being a cryptocurrency. So here we go. Obviously, they say that gold doesn't generate any dividends, yet the world's gold stocks are collectively worth trillions of dollars. Bitcoin investors are betting that the same will be true of the cryptocurrency in the long run. And for those really not in the know about Bitcoin, that is because the blockchain that it's built on, it allows people to kind of mine and perform these long calculations to do work, earn Bitcoin, that kind of thing. The rate of Bitcoin being released into the Bitcoin economy is very slow, and it takes a lot of work to mine even a single Bitcoin. So obviously, there is a cap, there is a limit, there is scarcity, and therefore supply and demand takes over. Capitalism. There you go. Now, and this is increasingly looking like a winner-take-all market. Bitcoin's price is now above its previous high in 2017, but other leading cryptocurrencies have regained their previous highs. They mentioned that have not regained their previous highs. The two cryptocurrencies, Ethereum's Ether is worth around $600, less than half the peak, and Bitcoin Cash, a Bitcoin spinoff designed to enable higher transaction volumes, has lost about 90% of its value. Litecoin is down about 70% over 3 years. And of course, what they're talking about there are altcoins, or alternative to Bitcoin. And it seems like, each one had their own improvement. Each one had their own take on, kind of what they do differently than Bitcoin. But at the same time, because Bitcoin was so, it was the poster child of cryptocurrency, many of their values were derived as a percentage of Bitcoin's value. 1,000 Litecoin is worth 1 Bitcoin, and therefore that is the price of Litecoin. Everything was held to, because again, the point of all these cryptocurrencies is that they're decentralized. There's no standard, there's no backing, there's no government organization, bank, there's no one to actually guarantee the value. The value is derived from the scarcity and supply and demand, people wanting them and people having them. So yeah, with no gold standard, with no US dollar standard, everything was held to the Bitcoin standard. And it looks like the Bitcoin is the Bitcoin is increasing, but everything else does not seem to be. So there you go. It's pretty fascinating how this all shook out, and Bitcoin being $20,000. I don't know many people who back in the day are still holding that kind of Bitcoin, that much Bitcoin, but I'm not sure where it goes from here. I mean, it's obviously gaining traction to some extent. I'm just not sure what the end game is for Bitcoin. Not sure. So that's story number one. Story number two, we can go ahead and, for those who don't know, we stream the show live over at twitch.tv/Computer America. And being on twitch.tv, I actually do follow the platform and its goings on. Not the closest. I mean, it doesn't really affect me. The Computer America is by and large PG friendly. We may talk about certain topics that may, kind of be scandalous to the average listener, but at the same time, we're not really belligerent. We're not throwing out curse words. We're not calling people names and, kind of deriding them like other broadcasts tend to do. So this doesn't really affect us, but there was a story about how Twitch is working to crack down on calling out people based on their sexuality and calling out people based on their sexual preference and things like that, which, by and large, again, doesn't really affect me. So, more to them. But this one has a chance to, and it's something that we deal with the show every so often. It's not really, we've gotten some DMCA takedowns, but by and large, through a little bit of paperwork and a little very annoying elbow grease, we can, of course, approach them and say we are a news organization. It's not the biggest deal. These other sites, though, they run into, or these other streams though, they deal with the situation that there are people playing video games online and just being influencers, just playing games and being entertainers. And one of the things that people traditionally used to do, and we've talked about this on the show before, they used to play anything that they wanted to on their streams. Live streaming was small enough that you never really had to pay attention to it, and people could listen to their favorite songs. They could have any well-known artist on their stream in the background. The music was never the appeal. Very few legitimate streams actually did this thing where they played, kind of radio style music. It was always something on in the background. Well, that changed earlier this year. That came earlier this year when the Recording Industry Artists of America, or something like that, the RIAA, sent thousands and thousands and thousands of DMCA takedowns to Twitch, telling Twitch, and I'm sure YouTube as well, telling Twitch that, hey, this is unacceptable. You are rampantly, your users on your platform are rampantly abusing DMCA, or flaunting DMCA guidelines and playing copyrighted music on their streams. They don't own any rights. They don't, they haven't made any of the contracts and any of the deals, because really there is no deal to be put in place for this kind of thing. You can't expect someone who's, making, anywhere from hundreds to thousands to tens of thousands, make sure that every one of them has their own licensing fees and licensing structure. It's not really possible. So my point is, it's been a problem. Twitch is getting a handle on it. And now, to add a little fuel to the fire, we have Senator Tom Tillis of North Carolina really cranking up the heat on DMCA. And so with North Carolina Senator Tom Tillis, he has a new bill, and a slew of social media users, alongside Twitch and YouTube creators, obviously, have gotten #StopDMCA trending on Twitter in a testament to mounting backlash. So obviously, on December 10th, this was about a week ago, Senator Tom Tillis snuck an aggressive Digital Millennium Copyright Act, or DMCA, proposal into the latest omnibus bill expected to be passed by Congress. While the full proposal can be read, the brunt of its impact can be summarized simply. DMCA violators will be met with felonies and possible jail time, which we often talk about kind of overreach of tech companies and, how unsustainable and unenforceable these things are. Remember, people have gotten DMCA takedowns by recording themselves in public, which is perfectly fine, uploading it to YouTube or Twitch or any of these other sites or Facebook, and then they get hit with a DMCA takedown because a restaurant they were walking past had music playing in the background, and as long as like a 30-second clip could get taken down and hit with a DMCA copyright strike. Very hard. It's almost like you have to run away from speakers because of DMCA music. And of course, to make it a felony is just, I can see where they're going with it. I can see why obviously the entertainment companies would be very protective of their IPs, why they would be very protective of what it is that they do. But again, this is so unenforceable that to make it a felony affects so many people. That's almost that's almost as crazy as, let's see, what would be a good I don't know. It's not a felony offense. And I think this was meant for people who legitimately are stealing thousands and thousands of songs and movies and distributing them as their own, who are, trying to do the most damage that they can by stealing other people's, kind of hard work. I get that that's what they want to kind of stop, and they think that by putting bigger fines, maybe link a felony charge to this kind of thing, it's going to stop it. But in all honesty, no, this is going to affect, tens of thousands of people who have absolutely, no way of protecting themselves against, the very litigious forces on the other side of the DMCA. And it's going to be a very, very wet blanket on a budding industry. Now, for months now, Twitch streamers have been reacting. Obviously, we mentioned the wave of DMCA takedowns. Being banned from a platform means a loss of revenue and a tighter leash on future transgressions, accidental or not. And with many already upset about the bans, it's unsurprising that social media has become a frenzy at the thought that the channel bans could be replaced with prison bars. So, obviously, we're still waiting for kind of comment from Tillis if this is what he had intended. I feel like this is something that needs to be clarified before it's actually passed. But being in an omnibus, unfortunately, DMCA revamps are not a big enough cause to put the entire proposal on hold, because I think this is the same one that's going to have pay protection and unemployment benefit increases and things like that. You can't stop relief for average Americans just over something like this, but it's something to really pay attention to. So I have no idea how he's going to I have no idea how DMCA is going to work after this, but it's pretty crazy. Let's see. So with that being said, okay, story number 2. There you go. That one's crazy. That one is quite possibly the craziest story of the day. I take that back. There's crazier ones. And are you ready for this? So back on Monday or Tuesday, here on Tuesday, I think, on the program, we talked about Solarwinds. Solarwinds, which provides, kind of data support services, email services, a lot of services for Fortune 500 companies, as well as the Department of Defense and the Federal Reserve and, other organizations of that matter, places that you want secure and to be able to have secure communications. Well, looks like quite possibly, maybe, just maybe, the update server that was compromised for months. Ladies and gentlemen, make strong passwords, especially if it's pretty crazy. So this is an article from Techdirt, and yeah, it's unfortunate, but security researcher reveals Solarwinds update server. I just can't bring myself to read this. Was secured with the password Solarwinds123. The company name followed by the numbers 123. And remember, this was a vendor that sold internet infrastructure to 425 out of 500 of the Fortune 500 companies and had access to, a ton of different government organizations. It is insane. So, as was noted here earlier, about 18,000 customers presumed to be operating on behalf of the Russian government. 18,000 customers were compromised, presumably by the Russian government, deployed tainted updates that gave them backdoors to snoop on internal communications and exfiltrate sensitive data. The attack was so widespread and potentially catastrophic that the DHS's cyber wing issued an emergency directive that stated the only way to mitigate the damage was to air-gap devices and uninstall affected Orion software, which, of course, air-gap means unplug it from the internet. Do not have it connected to any network whatsoever, and you have to go one by one floppy disk by floppy disk. Probably not floppy disk, but you know what I mean. And update the software independently. It's pretty crazy. So, meanwhile, Solarwinds filed an update with the SEC detailing the extent of the damage. It was limited, but only if you consider 18 to 33,000 potential infections limited. It's only a small percentage because SolarWinds' customer base is so large. The company boasts 300,000 customers, among them several government agencies and all 5 branches of military. So, there you go. Unfortunately, the director from the CISA has delivered a bit too late. CISA itself was compromised by the hack, something acknowledged by the DHS less than 24 hours after its dire directive. So, obviously, the fallout, the true damage, the true extent, we really don't know. But check this out. No doubt the company claims to take security seriously, but while users are being subjected to password requirements that demand them to utilize most of the alphabet and multiple shift key presses, as in numbers, letters, capital, special characters, things like that, their internal security was not nearly as restrictive. And, yep. Security researcher Vinod Kumar told Reuters that last year he alerted the company that anyone could access SolarWinds update server by using the password SolarWinds123. All 5 branches of military, the NSA, the IRS, the USPS, Department of Homeland Security, the Treasury Department, nearly every Fortune 500 company, all 10 of the top 10 telcos, the list goes on. And with that access, attackers could move laterally using compromised credentials to eavesdrop on mutuals of targeted entities. So obviously, if the USPS was talking to the Treasury Department, or the IRS was talking to the NSA, or if the Department of Homeland Security was talking to any of the different departments of the government, then all it takes is one of those customers to then, of course, compromise the others. So it's pretty crazy. Yeah, and I can't really use the rest of the language in this post because I would probably get fined, but there you go. SolarWinds 123. If you ever feel like, hey, I try so hard to protect everything, just remember, there are companies out there that will not try nearly as hard as you do. It's okay. So, which is, by the way, not a good thing. I don't know why I said it like that. That's not a good thing, but here we are. Okay, so that's story number 4. Story number 5, ladies and gentlemen. Story number 5. Let's have something lighthearted, a little bit different. Obviously, people doing very, very poorly at their job does not mean that we can't enjoy when people do very, very well at their job. And I can't think of anything that is... Every time we get an update about this, it is so surprising that they even took the time to say, why bother? But I definitely appreciate that they do. Ladies and gentlemen, MIT researchers have built the most precise atomic clock to date, saying it could help scientists explore issues such as the effect of gravity on time. Yeah, it's... I did not even know the two had any kind of correlation, but obviously, well, I mean, obviously did with black holes and everything that you hear about them, and, time passes differently, approaching, kind of the speed of light, and that all has to do with your mass, and yeah, so it obviously did have something to do with it, but just to know that we improve even further, this is pretty crazy. MIT researchers have built what they say is the most precise atomic clock to date. Their approach could help scientists explore questions such as the effect of gravity on the passage of time and whether time changes as the universe gets older. That'd be very scary because obviously we are influenced by time. We live within the flow of time, and if that is dilating or changing, we would never know because 1 second would feel like 1 second, but obviously to an outside observer, it could be changing. And that would be something completely different because that is a fundamental, kind of rule of the universe. I don't know. But the researchers who published the findings in a paper in Nature used a different method from existing atomic clocks to achieve greater accuracy. Instead of measuring randomly oscillating atoms, their design centers around quantumly entangled atoms. The atoms are correlated in a way that's impossible according to the classic law of physics. Quantum entanglement is how quantum computers obviously work. That is how they're hoping to have next generation, and by next generation I mean like Star Trek level of communication, by having atoms that are quantum entangled. You can manipulate one and then they are the exact same. The other one, regardless of distance, there is no speed, it instantaneously has an effect on the other. Again, regardless of distance between the two. You could put them on either sides of the universe, change one, and the other one would instantly be changed. That is the fun part of quantum mechanics. How the heck does that work? Smarter minds than mine have figured that out, but I have not. So, anywho, the team entangled about 350 atoms of ytterbium, or uridium. Sure, let's go with that. The rare earth elements atoms oscillate at the same frequency as visible light, or 100,000 times more often per second than cesium, which is what other atomic clocks use. Of course, cesium, yes, instead of ytterbium. If scientists can track those oscillations precisely, they can use the atoms to distinguish even smaller intervals of time. We're the most advanced atomic clock to use this method, and, well, they'd been around since the beginning of the universe, some 14 billion years ago. Researchers believe that they could be accurate to within less than a tenth of a second. The most advanced atomic clock would be off by half a second over the same time frame with their current setups. So they're going from, and think about that. So over the course of 14 billion years, which is the beginning of the universe to now, if you had that atomic clock set up the entire duration of the 14 billion years, the most advanced atomic clocks would be off by about half a second, so about 0.5 seconds over the course of 14 billion years. And this one, as to compare it to, you're looking at 0.1 seconds over that entire 14 billion year lifespan. That is extremely precise, and what they can do with that, I mean, they can measure everything. Really, when you get down to that level of precision, it's not useful for anything an average person would use. But it's very, very unique and useful for, like they said, hey, measuring the effect of gravity on time. Questions you never knew you had. There you go. So, good job, MIT. Always fascinating research coming out of there. And there you go. I should have done this next story after the previous one, but, well, I mean, kind of after the Solarwinds 1, 2, 3 kind of horribleness, but instead we'll do it now. Trump's Twitter. Yeah, always a fun read. Trump's Twitter having a bit of an issue as well. Prosecutors say Trump's Twitter was hacked through simple password guess. So there you go. He won't face charges as an ethical hacker, however. So the White House has denied that Donald Trump's Twitter account was compromised on October 16th, but Dutch prosecutors have told a different story. The Guardian and the Washington Post report that the Netherlands Public Prosecutor's Office has determined the researcher Victor Gevers really did hack, quote-unquote, Trump's Twitter account by guessing the president's password at the time. Which, by the way, if anyone would like to take a guess, go for it. But it's very Trump in nature. It's very President Trump in nature. Check this one out here. Quote unquote, MAGA 2020 exclamation point. MAGA 2020 exclamation point. Gevers won't face charges, however, as his immediate disclosure made him an ethical hacker intending to improve security rather than undermine it. So the security expert said he tried to alert U.S. officials and got the attention of the Secret Service, who thanked him for the report. He claimed success 6 years ago when Trump was reportedly using the password "you're fired." I remember that. The Trump administration hasn't responded to the latest claim, but Twitter said in a statement to the Post that it had seen no evidence to support Gevers or the prosecutors. It added that it had special security requirements in place for high-profile elected-related Twitter users, including Trump. And I'm sure what they mean by that is that they salt and hash their passwords on Twitter's end, so that, you know, obviously if Twitter is compromised, Trump would not be compromised. Though I got to say, obviously Trump was compromised and they had a backdoor into everyone's Twitter accounts, but at least the passwords were not stored in plain passwords on their servers. Regardless, obviously Twitter, like if this was simply a password guess and he is indeed correct, then, you know, the fact that he didn't take advantage and post anything he wanted using the Donald J. Trump Twitter profile, if he had posted even a single thing, someone would have easily made the case against ethical hacker and instead put him into just the hacker arena. So, obviously, whether or not the prosecutor's office is accurate, the claims draw attention to the safeguards for politicians. As Gevers said in October, a successful password guess would mean Trump wasn't using two-factor authentication. It would have been trivial for a malicious intruder to hijack the account. That would be a serious issue for any politician, especially in an era when state-sponsored hackers are thriving. There you go. It's certainly something to kind of be cautious about. So, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So I think that our next story that we're going to do, pretty simple. Our next one, though, let's talk about Robinhood. That sounds good. Does it? It does. Yes. Remember how I said a lot of companies are dealing with fines and, fines and violations and antitrust lawsuits and things like that? Let's get into a slew of those. So the first one is going to be Robinhood. Robinhood, Robinhood is an app that is designed to let anyone become a day trader. Let anyone become an investor, no matter how much money you have. There's no minimums. There's no fees for trading. I think that there's no fees for having an account. And yeah, you can invest as much as you want. Well, Robinhood, for some reason, which we'll find out here in just a second, said that Robinhood will be facing a $65 million fine for misleading its users. There you go. So with that being said, earlier this year, the Wall Street Journal reported that Robinhood was under investigation for not disclosing payments it received from market makers to execute the service's trades. The allegations were yet another black eye for the company that had already found itself mired in controversy, but the case has finally come to a close. The SEC charged the makers of the popular stock trading app this morning with misleading customers about revenue sources and failing to satisfy duty of best execution. As part of its settlement, Robinhood is required to pay $65 million in a civil penalty. So here's what actually happened, though. So for years, Robinhood has positioned itself as a way for new and casual investors to get a feel for stock trading, and its early focus on commission-free transactions gave the company a consumer-friendly edge compared to more traditional brokers. Behind the scenes, though, the SEC alleges that the company engaged in a practice known as payment for order flow, in which market makers, like high-speed traders, essentially pay for the right to execute those transactions, and these payments aren't handled in a lump sum. Instead, think of them as a stream of micro kickbacks delivered to the brokerage firm for each share sold. The practice is not illegal, but it is controversial since it is obvious that the potential for it to create conflicts of interest, saying that it's also somewhat controversial by association. Here's a name that I haven't heard in a little bit. As infamous Ponzi scheme peddler Bernie Madoff is widely considered to be the pioneer of payment for order flow. Bernie Madoff, not who you want to be associated with. Robinhood's issues with it boil down to two things. First, the SEC found the company had published misleading statements and omissions in customer communications between 2015 and 2018 about how it made most of its money. It did not come from interest made by lending out investors cash, or the $5 monthly fee that comes with the Robinhood Gold membership. It was made from these payments from market makers, which makes sense. Robinhood was a company that had made a lot of money, and I always assumed that they were just burning truckloads of venture capital funds, but it looks like they had their own payment scheme working in the background. Second, and more damning, is the fact that people who bought into Robinhood's vision of a no commission trades were worse off for it compared to the people who traded on the company's rivals, saying, quote, due in large part to its unusual high payment for order flow rates, Robinhood customers were executed at prices that were inferior to other brokers' prices. The order finds that Robinhood provided inferior trade prices that in aggregate deprived customers of about $34 million, even after taking into account the savings from not paying a commission. So I guess this is where the saying, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Robinhood turns out to be Robin Hoods. There you go. Robinhood, there's maybe the phrase also, if it sounds too much like a good thing, maybe if it sounds too good to be true, maybe it is. This is a really, really kind of sad thing because Robinhood was again pushed as this vision of, you don't need to be a large investment firm. You don't need to have, hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands or even thousands of dollars to invest. No, if you have $100 and a Robinhood Gold membership and a dream, you can get started in investing, kind of learn how it works and that kind of thing. And overall, turns out that the people were even worse off for it because they used a service like Robinhood. Man, the whole thing about Robinhood, steal from the rich, give to the poor, seems to be, hey, steal from the poor to further enrich yourself. Pretty sad. As is often the case with the SEC goes after a company, Robinhood settled this investigation without actually admitting guilt. So, so they didn't actually do that. They just paid $50 million for fun. Today's announcement notes that the company agreed to the multi-million-dollar penalty and a cease and desist order prohibiting it from violating the anti-fraud provisions of the Securities Act of 1933 and the record-keeping provisions of the Security Exchange Act of 1934. The stock market crash. What a time to be alive. While neither admitting or denying the SEC's finding. Isn't that crazy how their announcement is that they agreed to pay $50 million and they also agree to stop flaunting rules that they had to abide by already. It's like, all right, give us money. And by the way, follow the rules that were already there, but, do it better this time. Man, Robinhood got off easy. But it definitely does make me question, kind of their mission statement a little bit more. So speaking of antitrust, another one is about Google, and I have a couple stories about Google here. I think we'll do, actually it looks like I just have the one right now. Google hit with yet another antitrust lawsuit in 38 states and territories. Not a good time to be Google. Not a good time to be Google, at least not in this second. They said that this is the second antitrust action against the search giant this week. Google is facing yet another antitrust lawsuit, and they said that the action is the second, obviously, this week and third claim this year. On Wednesday, Texas attorney led a group of states in a lawsuit to call out Google's advertising business. And the Justice Department sued Google in October, saying that the company's search and advertising businesses were unfair monopolies. One could argue, I guess, which I guess as lawyers is theirs to argue. Google's, and this is a quote, Google's anti-competitive actions have protected its general search monopolies and excluded rivals, depriving consumers of the benefits of competitive choices, forestalling innovation, and undermining new entry or expansion. I think many people would argue that Google is rather monopolistic when it comes to search engines. So now, here we go. Like the DOJ lawsuit, Google's search business is at the heart of its state's action, and they mentioned that the lawsuit goes further than the DOJ charges. For example, it cites the company's investment in smart speakers, voice assistants, and connected cars as anti-competitive behavior, saying, quote, devices such as smart home speakers, smart television sets, connected cars, each could support or enable rival general search engines. Google's conduct in excluding the presence of rival voice assistants therefore limits an additional pathway through which more competition could come to its search-related monopolies, thus harming consumers, advertisers, and its competitive process. So what they're saying there is that because Google is a search engine and because Google makes IoT devices, and I'm saying IoT is a broad spectrum for smart assistants and connected devices, and of course Android as well, because they're making their own hardware, therefore they are anti-competitive because Google will not allow you to, I guess, kind of set the default to Bing or allow other search engines, like DuckDuckGo, to take over completely Google's services because everything is handled obviously through Google. When you buy a car, you don't get an option of what search engine is built into your car nowadays. No, it is strictly a Google compatible device, and Google will not, Google will obviously not take the effort to make sure that you can choose which provider you would like to They mentioned that, quote, this lawsuit demands changes to the design of Google Search, requiring us to prominently feature online middlemen in place of direct connections to businesses. Redesigning Google Search this way would harm the quality of your search results. This is what the company wrote. We look forward to making the case in court while remaining focused on delivering high-quality search experience for the users. And this is what Google said about the lawsuit. Companies and tech companies in general have gotten so big that it's hard to imagine, really how it's hard to imagine Google being broken up, but at the same time, they're so far-reaching that, let's face it, they know everything. And yes, their data, kind of just giant data conglomerates. They know how to wrap it up and wrap up their different services. They're suffering the same thing that I think, to a lesser extent, Apple, to a greater extent, I would even argue, Amazon is suffering with. They're so massive that anything they do, anytime that they move into another kind of market, they're going to dominate that market. They're going to monopolize that market through their services. So welcome to Cyberpunk. Yeah, Cyberpunk 2020. What a wild ride it has been. So there you go. Google, best of luck with them. They have, as they mentioned, the one earlier this week was about their advertising and saying that, their ads were excluding competitors and whatnot. It's hard when you are seen now as to a lot of people, and really to a lot of legislators, and I'm sure that people out there can agree with me, to people who are not really familiar with the internet and how it works, they associate Google as the internet. How do we get to Google? I find something on Google, it's on the internet, which is not how the internet works. But for many, it might as well be the same thing. If you can't find it on Google, you can't find it on the internet. So yeah, like AOL used to be, like Yahoo used to be, and hey, it's we're going to head into some weird times when it comes to antitrust and breaking up big tech, and just how powerful tech has become. It's been a long time since the world saw a $2 trillion company, and and I think the last time that anything held even a candle to what to kind of like what Apple and Google and Amazon, what these tech companies are worth, was like the East India Trading Company, which was worth a lot more, to be fair, but was also the world's kind of the world's greatest monopoly. So Prodigy, CompuServe, Excite. There's tons and tons. I mean, let's face it. Solarwinds, which we just talked about, they were serving essentially every government department, as well as 425 out of 500 Fortune 500 companies. Very few tech companies have a lot of power in their hands. So there you go. Okay. There you go. So that's story number, what was that? Story number 8, story number 9, and we have time for like maybe 1 or 2 more stories. Story number 9. I wanted to cover. Let's do this one. Credit where credit is due. China went to the moon and came back. Not in person, but hey, at least they sent a drone to go pick up some space rocks, which are always in short supply. Actually collecting things from the surface of the moon, pretty hard to do. And China went ahead and did it. So China's increasingly ambitious space program completed a 23-day mission on Wednesday that culminated in the return of about 2 kilograms. A kilogram is only like 2.2 pounds, so about 4.4 pounds. So about 4.4 pounds of rocks on the moon. During the final phase of the mission, a Singe spacecraft carrying the lunar cargo landed in Mongolia and was recovered by Chinese teams. Man, Mongolia, what a great place. There's about a 1 in 50 million chance you're going to hit a reindeer, and an even smaller chance of hitting civilization. What a great place to land down. Now, the Chang'e 5 mission represents a significant success for China and its space program, becoming the third nation after the United States and the Soviet Union to return samples from the moon. During the post-landing news conference, Chinese officials said that they would emulate the United States and Soviet Union in sharing the samples with international partners, including the United Nations. However, sharing material with the United States seems unlikely due to the Wolf Amendment, a law passed by Congress in 2011 that prohibits direct cooperation with China. I had no idea that was a thing. Clearly, we are economic rivals, and clearly, more and more you can say that we are, rivals in every other sense of the phrase. But I had no idea that there was, legislation on the books that said that, hey, we can't cooperate directly. And of course, to kind of rub it in their face, I mean, let's face it, a pound of moon rock is definitely worth being able to go on news and say, quote, the Chinese government is ready to share samples, including data, with like-minded institutions. However, he called the Wolf Amendment adopted by Congress unfortunate and indicated direct cooperation with NASA would probably not occur. As in saying, we would love to help the United States, but at the same time, we totally can't. Sucks to be them. Yeah, Again, congratulations to China for getting this mission done in 23 days to get new moon rocks. Very, very quick and efficient. But yeah, I mean, the it's whatever. The Chinese government is ready. So let's see. The U.S. space officials, including former NASA administrator, have called for the Wolf Amendment to be rescinded and said that the space agency should be allowed to work with China on current and future problems. The U.S. Congress, however, has continued to block this due to concerns about the potential of U.S. technology that might arise from such partnership. China is very well known for their abdicating of U.S. Patents and technology. They're very, very good at stealing that. But during the news conference, Wu said that the country could eventually send humans to the moon, but did not set a date for this mission. The country still must develop several technologies to make this happen. However, he said when China does go to the moon, it will be to conduct research and benefit humanity, not as part of a space race with the United States and the Soviet Union undertook in the 60s. Yeah, I mean, hey, I'm all for sending people back to the moon. I got a few choices in my head for who should probably go against their will, but you know what? Good on them. More countries into space, the more cooperation, at least hopefully sometime in the future we could have. And hey, we're all... I had no idea. And by the way, astronauts in the United States, cosmonauts in Russia and the Soviet Union, and now looks like we have Taikonauts. Taikonauts. Taikouts. Taikonauts in China. So, add it to your lexicon. Pretty cool stuff. Hey, space rocks. They're in short supply, and yet there's so many of them. Okay, so we have about 2 to 3 minutes left, and then we'll go ahead and call it a show. And by the way, tomorrow on the program, just to kind of tease it out there for you, I believe it's Hero Live. Hero.live is going to be our on the program with us, talking all about, think like Periscope, but not Periscope. And it's a great way to have view parties and watch things. They've been on the show once before, and we're going to get an update on kind of how they're doing and all that good stuff. It's a very ambitious project that Hero is trying to accomplish. And yeah, we're looking forward to talking with them again. Now, with that being said, our next story, our last one. We have mentioned on the program a service called Parler. Parler is a self-described open social media with very limited censorship. And, obviously the limited censorship has made it an attractive place for conservatives who feel that, places like Facebook and Twitter are, kind of not aligned with their ideals and, of course, exert control over them based on those ideals. Now, the problem with Parler, though, is that, fake accounts affect every social media site. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are, what side you lean. Fake accounts are a thing. And according to this story from BuzzFeed, roughly 50 fake accounts exploited the conservative social media network to shill Trump coins, which is an alternate currency to Bitcoin, Trump coins, Trump hats, and CBD oil. Obviously, people who thought that they could take advantage of people and, sell something to them. So they said that, so we'll start here. On December 5th, an account that said it was Vice President Mike Pence's official profile on the conservative social network Parler posted a link to a Trump Challenge coin giveaway. They said that, own a piece of history with President Trump's commemorative medallion, directing people to a website where they could order a free Trump commemorative coin if they paid for shipping. The post attracted over 170,000 views. Days later, the Pence accounts reshared a message from Team Trump Parler account that promoted a CBD oil. Oh, there's the music. That promoted a CBD oil that falsely claimed to be endorsed by First Lady Melania Trump. Ladies and gentlemen, if there are people, there is someone who is looking to scam those people. many of the hundreds of thousands of views are fake. Many of the hundreds of thousands of views that that it had gotten were deceived. Pence's office confirmed that it was indeed a fake account. And ladies and gentlemen, CBD oil, Trump coins, Trump hats, Trump memorabilia, all that kind of thing. There are legitimate places to get it. I would recommend the legitimate, storefronts for these kinds of things, not random social media links. Be careful, everyone. And hey, we'll be back tomorrow with an interview from Hero.live, and we'll catch you next time. Bye, everyone. Have a great day. Take care.